Kansas City Chiefs select Travis Kelce.
Chris Jones, defensive tackle, Mississippi State.
Patrick Mahomes, the second. Quarterback.
Hey, this is Brett Veach from Kansas City Chiefs. How you doing?
Mecole Hardman. Juan Thornhill.
Clyde Edwards.
I'm ready to work, Coach. You know that.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready now.
The Kansas City Chiefs are now on the clock.
Good evening once again, everyone, and welcome back to our draft watch party. Mitch Holtis with you, the voice of the Chiefs, along with Chiefs reporter Matt McMullen. We're in the Chiefs practice facility at 1 Arrowhead Drive, brand new turf. And, of course, this is brought to you by GEHA. Now, the Chiefs Kingdom has waited a night and a half. They've watched all of the first round go by. Of course, the Chiefs trading the 31 pick to the Baltimore Ravens to get Orlando Brown Jr. We've talked about that a lot. But, Matt, here we go. We've seen a lot of picks come off the board, and the Chiefs are really close to being on the clock. But this early second round, okay, one thing we anticipated, but another we did not.
Yeah, definitely not. And for those wondering, we're watching the draft right with you all. There's a TV behind the camera. We're watching it live just like you guys are. So we'll find out who the Chiefs are taking live with you all just here in a few moments. But, yeah, the safeties going early off the board was really interesting to me. And it's funny with the draft because there's always a wild card pick that freaks everybody out. And I'm sure there were some teams in the middle of the second round planning on going safety. Then all of a sudden, when Javon Holland went 36 overall to the Dolphins, not expected to go that high, people started freaking out. And then all of a sudden, you saw Richie Grant from UCF go to the Falcons at 40, and then Trayvon Moehrig go to the Raiders at 43. They traded up for him. So you're starting to see a lot of teams get a little nervous. They want their position group trading up for some safeties, and it's causing the rest of the board to fall differently than maybe we expected.
The other place, and it's a bit of a surprise and not, offensive linemen. There are 8 offensive linemen taken already in this second round. We thought the tackles would run. They ran. 5 offensive tackles, but 3 guards taken. And every one of the 3, if you look at most mock drafts and where we kind of tried to side-eye it, reaches on at least 2 of the 3 at the guard position.
Yeah, the one that's probably not a reach is Landon Dickerson.
No.
And he goes 30,
but he's got an injury. I mean,
he does.
Yeah.
And he goes 37 to the Eagles. That was one of those guys where you truly didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, some people thought he'd be a first-round pick because he's first-round talent, but he tore his ACL late in the year, and others thought, well, how far is he going to fall? Could he be there maybe when the Chiefs pick? He was a popular pick among mock drafts and experts who were looking for what the Chiefs would do. Landon Dickerson is a really solid player. So if he's healthy, that's a great pick for them. And going to Philadelphia, where Jason Kelce, Travis Kelce's brother, is, I mean, he's arguably the top center in all of pro football. So that's interesting. Maybe Landon Dickerson plays some guard. And then Jackson Carman and Aaron Banks. Those are the guys that are maybe reaches there. Jackson Carman from Clemson goes 46 to the Bengals. Aaron Banks goes 48 to the 49ers. Interesting selections there, but part of a larger whole, a lot of offensive linemen, as we suspected, going early into the middle of the second round, and it's causing a lot of other talent to come down. I mean, look at some of these names. Tevin Jenkins, he kind of started it all at 39 to the Bears. Tevin Jenkins, many thought would be a first-round pick, but he falls to 39, and then all of a sudden, people start to freak out. It's like, we got to go get our guy. So Liam Eichenberg goes 42 to Miami. Walker Little goes 45 to Jacksonville. Sam Cosmi goes to the Washington football team at 51. Then Dylan Radins goes to 53, the Tennessee Titans. I'm curious to see if this will continue, but it's really done the Chiefs some favors. All these offensive tackles going. The Chiefs aren't worried about that. They'll have a lot of talent here at their pick.
Yeah, I mean, for the Chiefs Kingdom, they're going, okay, yada, 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 yeah. Well, the 2 things here that affect the Kansas City Chiefs are, one, as we predicted, and you mentioned this in our earlier show, that that tackle run would shove down some very capable players at 58 and 63, looking for starters here, day 1 impact guys. Then 2, we're going to talk about the division. But what does this mean for the Kansas City Chiefs? I got to think that for Brett Veach, I mean, his board's pretty intact here. Freiermuth went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, just went. An outstanding tight end. It would be a great tight end compliment for Travis Kelce. We didn't mention him in the earlier shows we've done because we didn't think he'd be there at 55. So Pittsburgh gets a great pick there. But for the most part, you're looking at edge guys. Wide receivers are still there, so a lot of choices here for Brett Veach and the Chiefs.
Definitely. Another guy who fell was Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, outstanding hybrid linebacker from Notre Dame. He fell to 52 to Cleveland. He was number 16 on Dane Brugler, a great draft expert for The Athletic, on his board. So you just never know when some of these guys are going to fall and who's going to be there. And it's fun when you get to this part of the draft when the Chiefs are almost there. It's like, we might get this guy who's going to be a first-round pick. There's so much talent on this board, though, and it's really the beauty of the Orlando Brown trade because you don't have to worry about taking a tackle. Everyone else can worry about that.
Seahawks have taken a wide receiver, Eskridge, out of Western Michigan at the 56th pick. So that one is I don't think people had him at 56. A lot of people didn't. But still, Western Michigan, you think of Corey Davis.
Yeah.
And the Broncos of the MAC have had some wide receivers that have been in the National Football League. But again, other than the Freiermuth pick, we've talked about this and monitoring these picks throughout the night. Nothing has freaked me out of like, okay, I think the Chiefs have a lot of opportunity here and a lot across the board where they can make both of these picks and find impact players.
And this is what you hope for. I mean, Brett Veach was saying it last night. At 58 and 63, they can truly take the best player available. He was saying every position but quarterback is on the table. And when a position group like offensive tackle or a position group like safety, a run begins on those spots, it just opens up all the possibilities. And the Chiefs could go wide receiver if they want to. Every wide receiver they could ask for is at this spot coming up. They could go edge. They could go linebacker. Tons of talent available at this spot, and we're seeing what Veach was talking about with this hot zone of talent. You're looking at your board and you're saying, man, there's a lot of good players available here, and the Chiefs are only a couple picks away. It's very exciting.
Rondale Moore is gone. The Purdue slot receiver, many were comparing to Tyreek Hill in a way, just for his versatility. He's battled some injuries, but he's gone to Arizona. That would have been intriguing, although he'd be kind of his body type would be like a lot of the guys in that wide receiver room, but he is gone. So now the Rams are on the clock, and they get to make the pick. They've been dealing with COVID with their general manager and cleaning out, trying to get his pick out of the garage. But once the Rams they got 2 minutes and 14 seconds to pick, then the Chiefs will be on the clock with pick 58. Let's talk about the division here while we're waiting on the Rams pick and then the Chiefs being on the clock. So last night we had to sit and wait and watch the division make 3 selections. Rashawn Slater, really good offensive lineman, tackle or guard at Northwestern, going to the Chargers. We saw Patrick Surtain II, his dad used to play for the Chiefs, going to the Denver Broncos, and then Leatherwood, the tackle, going to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Javonte Williams went to the Denver Broncos here, and many think, okay, Najee Harris, great running back out of Alabama, but there are a lot of folks that studied this draft that thought Javonte Williams was the best running back in this draft.
He was a great value at that spot, and the Broncos got their guy for sure. Let's just put all the Aaron Rodgers stuff aside, if they're going with Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock, they're doing kind of what they did last year and trying to put as much talent as possible around whoever their quarterback is to help them succeed. And Williams is a stud. I mean, 1,168 rushing yards last year at North Carolina, 19 touchdowns, 76 broken tackles on 157 carries. The guy does not go down at first contact. He's a heck of a running back, and like I said, they're trying to put as much talent around whoever their quarterback is as possible. Pair him with Melvin Gordon in that backfield, and you think about some of the receiving options they have, guys like Noah Fant at tight end, Cortland Sutton, a lot of good players, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler on that Broncos offense, and Williams just adds to that.
Actually, Lance Zierlein, NFL.com, compares him to Kareem Hunt.
Wow.
Yeah, that's high praise. He was also valedictorian of his class. So we are monitoring here this Rams pick as we're getting ready to have the Chiefs on the clock with pick 58, the first pick in this draft. Again, trading to get Orlando Brown Jr. out of the 31 pick in the first round last night. Also in the for the division, the Chargers get Asante Samuel Jr. So Patrick Surtain Jr., or the second, goes to the Denver Broncos. Asante Samuel, remember his dad played for the New England Patriots. He'll be a Charger. And when you look at what they've lost in the secondary, this is another value pick, I think, for the Chargers.
What is the difference between a junior and a second? I always wondered that.
You know what? I got to think about that.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's you, man. You're thinking outside the box.
Yeah,
Next level thinking.
Yeah, but Asante Samuel Jr., heck of a player. It's funny, Asante Samuel Sr., who I feel like he was playing yesterday.
Yeah.
He played for Coach Reid in Philadelphia from 2008 to 2011. Very familiar with him. We feel old talking about these guys. I wonder how Coach Reid feels. He was coaching Asante Samuel Sr. But second most forced incompletions of any Power 5 player the last 3 seasons. He's undersized. He's not over 6 feet tall, but he's a ball hawk.
Yeah.
He'll always be around the ball. Really interested to see what they do there with the Chargers. They have Chris Harris there, but still plays the slot. So I'm interested to see what their plan is for him.
And if they could keep Derwin James healthy, that just makes all the difference for their secondary. So
Sure.
The Chiefs are getting ready to go on the clock. The Rams pick is in. We will talk about Trevon Mooring here of TCU is one of those safeties that went. And we're going to double check here and see if this one is, if that's still good. We don't know yet what the Rams will do, and then the Chiefs will be on the clock. But let's go to Mooring here. Really good TCU safety. Of course, playing in Gary Patterson's program, that's a great way to prepare for the National Football League. But again, the second round and seeing all these safeties fly off the board, and the Raiders take one.
Now, what's interesting is he's one of those safeties that you thought might go in the first round, but he slides down to the second round, and he's part of that slide of safeties, goes at 43 overall to the Raiders. He led all FBS safeties in pass breakups in each of the past 2 seasons, so the guy's a stud, always around the ball. We heard from Ian Rappaport, I guess he had a back injury. That was kind of a phantom back injury that had him slide down in the draft, but that's tremendous value there for the Raiders, adding a really athletic ball-hawking safety to their defensive backfield.
Yeah, and Tutu Atwell is now taken by the Rams. So the Chiefs are on the clock. Tutu Atwell is, I know, he's, this is a bit of a reach. Look at, I mean, the size of Tutu Atwell, 155 pounds and just under 5'9". He's got some explosiveness to him, but small. And this is kind of in the Rondale Moore category. The Rondale Moore's got more thickness to him than Tutu Atwell. So the Rams, this is a bit of a surprise to me. Because Tutu Atwell was thought to maybe be our 3rd or 4th rounder.
Yeah, this is where you get to this point in the draft, and Brett Veach mentioned this yesterday, that the first 30, 40 picks, every team probably agrees on. It's when you get to this range that every board is all over the place. So Tutu Atwell, clearly on their board, he was very high. But I'm looking at Dane Brugler's board here from The Athletic, and he was the 15th overall receiver. So you really never know when you get to this point in the draft how certain teams value certain guys, but they got their guy. But now the Chiefs are on the clock, and there is so much talent available. I mean, just thinking about wide receiver, guys like Terrence Marshall Jr. from LSU. At edge, Joseph Asai, we talked about him earlier, he's there. Elijah Molden, that corner, he's there. Nick Bolton, that linebacker, he's there. Tons of options here for the Chiefs. It's going to be exciting. Only have to wait a few more minutes.
Jabril Cox is still there. The LSU / North Dakota State / Raytown South linebacker that is also there. Basically, everybody that, if you watched our earlier show prior to the start of round 2, and really appreciate everybody being on there. We heard from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, heard from Coach Reid, heard from, of course, Chairman and CEO Clark Hunt, and we heard from McCole Hardman. But at the start of that show, we kind of laid out everybody that we talked about is still on the board.
I know. That's the crazy thing. I mean, you worry that you talk about all those guys and they're gone in the first 5 picks, and it's like, welp. But you know what we did do is we talked to McCole about taking a Georgia Bulldog, and then Tyson Campbell went 1st overall in the 2nd round. You probably liked that.
And I was surprised that he went that high. The Chiefs,
pick is in.
The pick's in for the Kansas City Chiefs, getting ready to announce to you the first new member of the Chiefs draft class. Keep in mind, the Chiefs do have a 4th-round pick, and they've also got a couple of 5ths. But the pick is in at 58 for the Kansas City Chiefs as they show the draft room for Kansas City. Coach Reid, of course, rocking the Tommy Bahama.
Has to.
And so we're getting ready for the announcement of the pick. And hang on in there, partner. Hang on. We're anticipating an exciting pick here.
This is overwhelming. I haven't felt these nerves in a long time. But here we are. It's the draft. I've never done a live draft show where I'm finding out with Chiefs Kingdom who we're picking. But yet here we are. We don't know.
No, we don't know yet. We're close. And we're ready just in case. But, again, the Chiefs can go a lot of different ways here.
Yeah. Well, and this is where we have all the possibilities we can think of ready to go.
Yep.
Hopefully it's someone we know something about.
Absolutely. But,
we'll find out here momentarily.
You know, we talked about wide receiver. We took a look at edge. We mentioned that. We said there could be a corner setting there. But really, this board has fallen to the Chiefs as good as could be expected. And Will Shields, Pro Football Hall of Famer, is making the announcement in Cleveland.
Look at that. Look at that.
Well, I've got to contain my co-host here because his night has just been made, and a lot of folks in the Chiefs Kingdom.
Wow.
Remember on our earlier show tonight, we talked about Nick Bolton, and we featured him. He is a tackle machine. Let's just go through now the look at Nick Bolton. And I know I'm going back in time here, but bear with me. The measurables people say aren't there. He's 5'11", 237 pounds, ran a 4.640 the pro day. But I'm thinking guys like London Fletcher of the Rams, Sam Mills, who's in the Hall of Fame. This guy's a tackle machine.
Yeah.
And you're a Mizzou alum. Let's just put it out there. So be as fair here as possible. But this is a guy that's very active and fills a need that we talked about for an inside linebacker possibility.
Yeah, I am a Mizzou alum. Put that aside. I'm also a Chiefs fan, and this is great news if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan. This is one of those guys that I thought he would go, if not at the end of the first round, early second round. And here he is available to the Chiefs at pick 58, which is just incredible value here. We talked about it in our pre-show, and he was one of the guys we discussed. And you're right, his measurables don't jump off the page. But the guy loves football, and he's always around the ball, and he is a tackle machine. So looking at Pro Football Focus here, brick wall. Opposition will be the one moving backward on contact. Processing speed is elite. Sees the game exactly how you want a linebacker to. Plays downhill and is not scared to attack, trusts his reads, and consistently makes plays in coverage despite not ideal physical tools. The guy loves football. He's a Tasmanian devil. That's what Todd McShay called him when we talked to him about the draft a few weeks ago. This is an awesome pick, and just think about the excitement now of having Willie Gay Jr. and Nick Bolton right next to each other developing in this defense.
I think that's where we start because you're talking about complementary players. Mm-hmm. You're talking about Nick Bolton's game complementing Willie Gay Jr.'s game, quite honestly. Now, when you look at the productivity of Nick Bolton, there are few defensive players in all of FBS football over the past couple of years that can match his productivity. Nick Bolton led the SEC in tackles in 2019. I'm going to repeat that. Nick Bolton led the SEC in tackles in 2019. The productivity's off the board. 107 tackles in that season, 7.5 for loss. He had a sack. This isn't a sack guy. Don't think of him as a sack guy. But here's where the other thing comes into play here. And some thought, well, could he defend the pass? Remember when we talked inside linebacker a couple of hours ago, the NFL has changed. The Urlacher days are kind of over, like the big tree sitting in there as a middle linebacker. But Nick Bolton had 10 passes defensed in 2019 in his big productivity year and 2 picks. Last year, COVID, 2 less games that he played, but 95 tackles. Still had 5 passes defensed. So that's 15 from an inside backer, 15 passes defensed in a 2-year span. To me, that's encouraging and has to be a good sign for Steve Spagnuolo and Matt House, the linebackers coach.
Definitely. And I could keep talking about this, but I'm just going to read this paragraph I found in his draft evaluation from Pro Football Focus because I think Chiefs fans will like it. He had the most stops of any linebacker in SEC play in each of the past 2 seasons. Think of all the great players in the SEC. He's a tone setter in every sense of the word. Bolton wants to send a message to every player he comes in contact with. There are no role projection concerns with Bolton. Put him at Mike linebacker and profit. I mean, that's music to my ears.
And again, if you look at it, he plays with great field recognition when dropping into zone. He's got a history of making plays on the football in coverage. And to me, that has got to be imperative here with an inside linebacker. A 3-down linebacker who can make, here's the word I like, immediate contribution. He can make an immediate contribution on special teams and has the potential to become a future starter. Now, keep in mind, he also can be mentored by a guy like Anthony Hitchens. So if you want to think about Alex Smith here mentoring Patrick Mahomes, but this is a guy we have said with these two picks, and the Chiefs are still setting at 63, the Panthers are on the clock, and they've made their pick at 59. Don't go anywhere, because we're back on the clock here very shortly. But the fact that Nick Bolton can help you win a game on the first week of the season is something you want to find with pick 58 in the draft.
Definitely, and you're right. So the Chiefs have Anthony Hitchens. They don't need to plug Nick Bolton in there for 100% of the snaps right away. But what he can do on special teams is going to help this team win right away. And he's going to bring that same attitude that he brings to playing defense at Mizzou to playing special teams and be a Tasmanian devil on special teams. This is an exciting pick for so many reasons, and you're thinking about not just this season but also the future. Once again, the young linebacker core the Chiefs are building here, the second level of their defense. Like you said, you can't just have thumpers anymore at linebacker. Those days are going away. You have to have athletic linebackers, and to have two of them now, two young linebackers who are growing and learning together in this defense, Steve Spagnuolo is going to have a lot of fun with both of these guys.
His pro day measurables, keep in mind, no combine this year, so it's been a weird year of evaluation. We talked about that with Coach Reid and with Brett Veach yesterday. But if you look at his 4.6, the 20-yard shuttle at 4.5, a vertical jump of 32 inches, broad jump of 9.7. If you look then, 24 on the bench. I mean, this is guy functional strength is what I think of too with him, because again, people are looking. This isn't a 6'3", 200. This isn't Micah Parsons' size, okay? But with the productivity and what he gets out of his game, again, there are a few players in this draft that can meet his productivity and making splash plays. That's the thing. You're a Mizzou fan. You saw this. He can make splash plays. And that's something that Steve Spagnuolo, again, would like with Nick Bolton, the newest member of the Kansas City Chiefs.
When I think about a linebacker, that position epitomizes a football player, doesn't it? Because you do just a little bit of everything. You're hard-nosed, and you're all over the field. You're in coverage. You're getting after the passer.
It's like a catcher in baseball, really.
Yeah, it really is. And that is Nick Bolton.
Yep.
If you just turn his tape on, that's what he is. He personifies the position. And he's out there in coverage making plays. He's playing with his hair on fire, getting after the running back or the quarterback. The guy personifies the linebacker position. And Coach Reid's got to be pumped up about this, right?
Yeah, he loves this. And former Missouri assistant, yeah, he likes it. So there's a lot of M-I-Z-Z-O-U going on right now in the Chiefs' kingdom. So Nick Bolton, again, taken by the Chiefs in pick 58, and the newest member of Steve Spagnuolo's defense. And again, the Carolina Panthers have taken Terrence Marshall Jr., wide receiver out of LSU. We thought he might go a little above this, but again, he had to be the bell cow last year. Keep in mind, Jamar Chase opted out. Justin Jefferson, we saw what he did with the Minnesota Vikings, so it was a little bit rough on him. His grade actually went down when he had to be without those guys. But still, I think it's a value pick for Carolina to get Terrence Mitchell at the 59th.
Yeah, that's a nice pick, and that makes you wonder about some of the other receivers that are being taken off the board, like Tutu Atwell. Terrence Marshall is your definition of an X-wide receiver. I mean, 23 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons at LSU. The guy was productive. He found the end zone. That's a really nice pick for Carolina, trying to give Sam Darnold, their quarterback of the future, a weapon there with Terrence Marshall.
You know, I'm going back to Chiefs that played at Mizzou. Mitch Morse in recent times. Henry Marshall,
sure,
wide receiver. So now you can put him out there. I mean, hit us with him. The Missouri Tigers, who have been Kansas City Chiefs, and here's the newest one in Nick Bolton. Now, you weren't going to sleep. You weren't going to sleep much tonight anyway.
No, you're
not going to sleep at all now, man.
No, this is exciting. I mean. Obviously, a lot of my friends are from Mizzou, so I'm getting a lot of texts right now. People are excited. These are good picks for the Kingdom, too, because a lot of Chiefs fans in Columbia and in Missouri, and there's no team in St. Louis now, so other side of the state, a lot of Chiefs fans, and this is exciting for people that live and breathe Missouri football. They can now watch one of their favorite players in a Chiefs uniform every Sunday.
He's a Dallas kid. He played at Frisco, Texas. And Missouri's had some great players from the state of Texas. Everybody's had great players from the state of Texas. I love Texas high school football. He went to Lone Star High School in Frisco. Great level of ball there. And so for Mizzou to get him was a nice get. And now for the Chiefs to get him is also a nice get. So inside linebacker Nick Bolton, the Chiefs pick at 58. And again, the Chiefs are getting close to that pick 63 as the New Orleans Saints are on the clock and getting ready to announce their pick in Cleveland, Ohio. By the way, in case you forgot, in 2 years, in 2023, Kansas City will be hosting the NFL Draft. And I'm not sure that's completely soaked in yet. When you watch all that's going on in Cleveland tonight and realizing that's going to be here in 2 years, it's going to be months of planning and days of it and weeks of excitement.
Well, and the thing is, when you first hear that news, what was it, last year that we first got that news, 2 years ago? It just feels so far away. It's like, that will be great when it happens, but it's far away. Well, we're getting there. And, yeah, that's going to be an absolute blast. We've seen how Kansas City embraces things, like when the Royals won the World Series, or, of course, when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, the hysteria and the madness of all the people. Think about the NFL draft, not just people in Kansas City, but the whole country descending on Kansas City. And Kansas City, as it should be, will be the NFL mecca of the world.
Pete Werner taken. Ohio State's got these linebackers. What we talked about, right? Yeah, there's 3 of them right across the board. You watch them play this year. They were challenging. Of course, they were in the college football playoff, won the Big Ten, beating Northwestern in the Big Ten championship game. But they get Pete Werner off the board from Ohio State, who goes to New Orleans. So pick 60, pick 61. I'm sorry, pick 60's gone. Pick 61, pick 62, and we're back on the clock.
Yeah, so Buffalo and Green Bay between the Chiefs and the pick currently. Pete Werner is a pretty good player. He's one of those guys that wasn't super flashy in college, but just solid 3-down linebacker. He'll probably have a long career just being a linebacker, being a solid player. Nick Bolton's pretty flashy, though. And if you're not already, I'm sure we ran some B-roll of Nick Bolton, but you said I'll be up late tonight. I'll be up late watching highlights of Nick Bolton tonight.
And again, don't overlook the special teams factor here. These picks in the second round, depending on the position, we talked about backer, we talked about corner, we talked about wide receiver, and we talked about edge rusher. All 4 of those categories can be impact Dave Toub special teams players right away. And that's the evaluation here as well as Nick Bolton. You're going, well, is he going to be a day 1 starter? Maybe, maybe not. But he can be a day 1 winner. And can you imagine him on special teams as active as this guy is? And keep in mind now, Anthony Sherman is retired. I know I keep saying this, but Anthony Sherman was such a contributor on special teams. He led the team in tackles a couple times. I could play the big returns by Tyreek Hill or McCole Hardman back, and the first block would be made by the sausage, Anthony Sherman. You didn't see it because it happened way back here, but it led to the big play. Nick Bolton's the kind of guy, and you mentioned he loves to play football. He's the kind of guy that could be an Anthony Sherman-type blocker, kick blocker, coverage guy on special teams, maybe a 4-core guy right away.
100%. And what was Anthony Sherman? He was an energy giver.
Yes.
And beyond just special teams, think about the defense of this team. Guys like Frank Clark, Tyrann Mathieu. When we talk about how they came to this team defensively and changed everything on that side of the ball, they're great players, but their energy and their mindset is what truly changed things on defense. And Nick Bolton is that energy. Just watch his highlights at Mizzou. He is going crazy. He's the leader of that defense. He is an energy giver. I think Frank Clark and Tyrann Mathieu are going to love that guy. And when you're trying to replace Anthony Sherman in terms of what he did for the team, a great blocker on special teams, getting after return men, and also giving energy and being a leader, I think Nick Bolton will be that day 1.
And when you think about your linebackers become many times your most key special teams type players. And if you look back, Ben Neiman's play in Super Bowl 54, 2 of the most underrated plays in that game were after the Chiefs stopped and got scores, they stopped the 49ers kick returner inside the 20-yard line. Byron Pringle did it once. Ben Neiman did it another time. I can see Nick Bolton going down the field in Super Bowl 56 and making a similar kind of play.
Yeah, I sure can. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? I'm looking forward to that. Let's pencil that one in right now. So you love when guys are already familiar with the Kingdom and just being in Columbia and at Mizzou. Of course, he already is. But looking at just his bio, he took official visits to both Mizzou and KU. So I'm sure he flew into Kansas City. I'm sure he's flown in and out of Kansas City several times. Originally committed to Washington, but then flipped to the Tigers closer to National Signing Day. I'm glad he did, and now here he is a Chief.
Yeah, I got a feeling he doesn't have to set his GPS to find Arrowhead Stadium.
No.
Just a guess. But again, too, and having him coached by Matt House, and we have seen this coaching staff. If you joined us earlier, Coach Reid, we asked him about how getting these guys up to speed quickly, having them ready for week 1 to have a week 1 impact. And Coach Reid, you can go back and find it and listen to it. He said, we pride ourselves in being teachers as well as coaches. And the ability to teach and get a guy ready to go, and a guy with his acumen in Nick Bolton who can soak in football knowledge. But we have seen Matt House be fantastic as a linebackers coach in getting these guys ready to go. earlier than many cases maybe other NFL teams would have him ready.
You know what I love is when players on the team are reacting to these kind of things. We see it with Patrick Mahomes all the time. So Willie Gay Jr. has reacted to this pick. He's quote tweeted the Chiefs account, which announced the pick. And you probably can't see here, but it's the Carlton dance. He's doing the Carlton dance. This is how he feels about this move, the Carlton dance, and I agree with him. But, you know, Willie Gay knows a thing or two about playing linebacker. He knows the kind of linebackers he wants in that room, and he's happy about Nick Bolton being a Chief. Man, I'm so excited to see those two next to one another at some point in their careers. And just two young linebackers growing on this defense. We've seen it with the offense, so many young players growing on this offense together and going through battles together. The second layer of the Chiefs' defense, we haven't had a lot of young players at the position really grow together. And now we're going to see it here with these two guys.
Yeah, and think about it for a while. And think about them on getting started in their careers, but those guys playing together, two SEC linebackers side by side with athleticism and power and a lot of productivity coming here with Willie Gay Jr. and Nick Bolton side by side, and leaders like Anthony Hitchens getting those guys ready to go and being in that room. A big part of why the Chiefs have been the most consistent winning team really over the past 3 seasons in the entire National Football League. And what a great 8 years under Andy Reid. 9-7 and only 1 year missing the playoffs. That was a 9-7 year. Still went to the last couple of weeks. Could have been into the playoffs. But defensively, we saw great strides really over the past 2 years under Steve Spagnuolo. And people look at yards given up and last year the red zone number wasn't good. I mean, the Chiefs were at the bottom of the league, so I'm not going to skirt over that. But the impact plays that this defense has made and continues to show it, that's kind of, and Spags and I have talked about this, that's kind of the way defense is played now. You're not going to shut people down. The offenses are too good. But you get a guy like Nick Bolton who can make an explosive play, can flip a game.
I'd encourage fans to go watch the LSU-Mizzou game when LSU was on the Mizzou 1 yard line. If they score, they win that game. And Nick Bolton was right in the middle of a 4-down stand on the 1-inch line to make sure LSU didn't score. He was right in the middle of it. If you want to figure out what this kid is about, go watch that sequence of plays. Nick Bolton's right in the middle, making sure LSU didn't score, and that Mizzou won that football game. Really gets back to what you were saying about red zone. Nick Bolton could be right in the middle of that red zone defense. Just some housekeeping here.
Well, you know who loves the pick then based on that?
Who's that?
In Richmond, Virginia, Willie Lanier.
Yeah.
Who was the middle linebacker, the 69 Super Bowl IV championship that wouldn't have made it even to the AFL championship game had they not had a 3-down stand at the 1 yard line. He was 36 inches. Yeah. And we were not going to let him in. He made 2 plays. Bobby Bell made the other one. So the Packers are on the clock at 62, and your thought?
Well, I was going to say Carlos Basham Jr. Goes to the Bills. Big pass rusher. He's a different kind of player than a lot of the edge rushers in this draft. He's a bigger guy who can bounce inside and play some defensive tackle. That was a guy that some people had mocked to the Chiefs, but he goes here late to the Bills in the 2nd round. Now the Packers are up, and we're waiting to see who they pick.
Yep, and again, the Chiefs are close. Josh Myers, a center out of Ohio State. And again, good player, but this is kind of like those guards that were going off. This is higher than was expected for him. Mm-hmm. So those interior linemen, the rush is on. And so Josh Myers out of Ohio State, who has snapped the ball here to Justin Fields. So going to the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, that's an interesting pick. Packers addressing the center position. Josh Myers, solid player, but yeah, he factors into this this run on interior linemen and just linemen in general that we've seen. With Aaron Banks, Jackson Carman, of course, Landon Dickerson getting it all started at 37. Now Josh Myers goes off the board to the Packers. Now I believe we're on the clock.
We are on the clock. And the Chiefs getting ready for their 2nd pick here in the 2nd round after choosing Nick Bolton, inside linebacker from the University of Missouri with pick 58. And the Chiefs are on the clock now with this 63rd pick. So what's overlooked here, quite honestly, is the fact that the Chiefs not only got Orlando Brown Jr., but remember, back last Friday afternoon when it happened, the Chiefs now have the pick in. And we'll see if that's the case. And we're getting ready here. And this will also be interesting.
It's exciting, Mitch.
Well, it is exciting because we'll see what the Chiefs decide to do here. If it is, I think you're talking about getting a outstanding value here. But we don't know yet for sure. Once it's announced, we'll jump in here. But the fact that that Brett Veach got that second-round pick back in the Orlando Brown Jr. trade, because there were picks given up. And keep in mind, the Chiefs are going to be in the 4th and 5th round. They're not in the 3rd right now. But the fact that he got that pick at 58 becomes Nick Bolton.
Yeah, I mean, and that trade was absolutely incredible if just Orlando Brown comes to the Chiefs. But to also get a second-round pick in this hot zone is amazing.
The Chiefs have a great tradition in the offensive line, but we'll see. That could be a place that they go. Yes, and they are going to announce the pick here very shortly.
I love doing this live.
There's the fully vaccinated draft room. And here comes Roger Goodell with pick 63.
We don't know who it is.
No. We're hoping that it's this guy because we're ready to go. So, very shortly, we're seconds away. Here comes Roger Goodell, and he will announce this next pick. And we think it is Creed Humphrey.
Okay.
University of Oklahoma center, athletic center.
Yeah.
All right. And there you see, first quick step, accomplished wrestler. He's Shawnee, Oklahoma, which is just east of Oklahoma City. A high-level wrestler. That tells you leverage. But now all of a sudden you look at an offensive line and you get excited. You have Orlando Brown Jr., left tackle, Oklahoma. Okay, now you have a left tackle center. You got a center sooner. But you got Joe Tooney sitting at the left guard. You still have Austin Blythe to be a backup in there in the middle, much like a Daniel Kilgore last year. But to me, this is a great value pick that Creed Humphrey available at pick 63 and the Chiefs to make that move. Yeah, this is so exciting. And an attitude from Creed Humphrey is what you really notice with this guy, and that's what you want along your offensive line. This just continues what the Chiefs have done, remaking this offensive line from an area where maybe a weakness on this team to being one of the best offensive lines in the league. And they're slowly doing that here already with Orlando Brown Jr., Joe Tooney, like you mentioned, the left side of this line, two Pro Bowl caliber players right there. Now at center, Creed Humphrey, one of the best centers in this draft, has 2,488 career snaps to his name at Oklahoma. Ton of starting experience. He's a versatile body type. He can play any position along the interior of the offensive line. That's a trend we've been seeing here is versatility. Guys who can play guard, center, tackle. They can be anywhere along the offensive line. Reading his draft profile here, upper body strength is a plus, can take a nose tackle out of the hole, and some of the best hands in this class. If he's in your pads, he's staying there. This is an exciting pick. Yeah, here's some other positives. Creed Humphrey, University of Oklahoma, 6'4", 302. He was a fourth-year junior at OU. He's 21 years old, which is like an old man in this draft, right? Everybody's 20 years old or 19 or something. But good technique, very smart, two-year team captain. But helps with cleanup with teammates' protection, gets leaky. His hands and punch were tighter and more accurate at the Senior Bowl, so keep in mind he's going up against elite competition there and a very good recovery mode. It is some project this is kind of a compilation of different things, but could be a long-time starter. But this becomes a smart move center because it also says here he can move. Keep in mind, if you go back to Rodney Hudson when he was a Chief, now we know he's moving around. He's now an Arizona Cardinal. He was a Raider, which broke my heart. But the centers in Andy Reid's offense, when it's functioning at a high level, have to move. The centers move. You'll see centers pull. You have to be centered. And nobody runs the screens and 1,000 different screens better than Andy Reid. But a guy that can do it like Creed Humphrey, to be that smart and that much of a tactician and have the ability to move all the way outside to tackle if need be is a plus for this offense. Definitely. And you also want your center to be kind of the captain of that offensive line. He's the anchor of the whole thing. And when you see some of these notes here, outstanding leadership, having the recognition to make all the calls up front. I just love the sound of that. One more thing here, looking at his Pro Football Focus profile. 2020, I'm going to ask you a question here, Mitch. 2020, 401 pass blocking snaps. 2019, 436 pass blocking snaps. 2018, 460 pass blocking snaps. Guess how many sacks he allowed? You got me on that one. Goose egg. None. Zero sacks allowed in, 1,200 pass blocking snaps. Love the sound of that. Got to protect the A-gap first. We don't have to go very far back in time to know that. The A-gap has got to be protected first, and that's your center working in concert with guards. and he's got a veteran with a Pro Bowler in Joe Thuney to help him on the left side. There will be competition on the right side, but he's going to have a veteran probably over there, whether if it's Kyle Long or Louis Duvernay-Tardif or Andrew Wiley. But you're looking now at an offensive line that, this is going to be interesting during training camp to watch this offensive line come together, because now all of a sudden something that was so uncertain coming off of Super Bowl 55, now you're going, wait a minute, they could be one of the top 5 offensive lines in the league if this all pops together.
I want to see Humphrey's reaction knowing he's becoming a Chief, don't you?
Yeah, I think we saw it. I think NFL Network had it on there.
There it is.
Yep.
We're showing it right now, I believe. There he is.
And
think that guy's excited to be a Chief?
There he is. Oh, yeah. And again, Shawnee, Oklahoma. So right at where the Chiefs Kingdom kind of has to battle the Cowboys. I've been there many times, actually. So, and again, smart, tough, big, physical wrestler. And that you always want your offensive lineman to have that wrestling attitude and understand leverage. But he can move. You saw he's a large human, but he can move. The offensive linemen in this offense, as mentioned, have to be able to be agile. And that's what Andy Reid requires from the offensive line. And then, turn him loose with Andy Heck here. We're talking, again, the ability to teach with this Chiefs coaching staff. And so, again, Creed Humphrey, if you just joined us, was the Chiefs' pick at 63. That's the pick they were slotted in the second round, the pick that they gained in the Orlando Brown Jr. trade with Baltimore in 58. They pick up Nick Bolton, the inside linebacker from the University of Missouri. So this is a good night for Kansas City because, again, both of these guys can have impact from the very first day of the season.
From the very first day of the season, whether that be on special teams, in the case of Nick Bolton, I'm sure he'll have reps on defense as well. But also, what was Coach Reid talking about in our pre-show? It's competition. Competition makes all these guys better. And now along the entire offensive line, there's competition everywhere. I mean, you can pencil in Orlando Brown Jr. at left tackle, Joe Thuney likely at left guard. But beyond that, game on. All these guys are going to compete for these roles along the offensive line. That's only going to make this offensive line better. And if guys get injured, guys who could be starters can step right in. So I'm so excited about the depth along this offensive line. Training camp's going to be a lot of fun watching these guys battle it out, as you mentioned, figuring out who the starting 5 is going to be in week 1. But I feel so good about this offensive line. The last 2 weeks, what we've done, just adding some names, some depth there, and some good talent there. Chiefs Kingdom should feel very good about the offensive line right now.
And not just competition, but depth. 7 or 8 offensive linemen active on any given Sunday, Thursday, or Monday. But the fact that you have depth at that position many times, keep in mind, in the Super Bowl run to win Super Bowl 54, the Chiefs, our live studio audience here is enjoying the pick by Kansas City. But the fact that people forget Eric Fisher missed 8.5 games that year. And the fact that there was depth on the offensive line for Kansas City became big in part of becoming a world champion. And last year, the same coming true in winning an AFC championship because Mitchell Schwartz went down and there had to be somebody fill in at right tackle. And then it just became too much against that defense of Tampa Bay. But Creed Humphrey, the newest center. And really, I think what's understated is the history of centers in the Kansas City Chiefs. If you look, E.J. Holub was the Super Bowl IV center. Now, he was a two-way player.
Linebacker, right?
He was a linebacker, but he became a center when he had some knee injuries. But he became, one of maybe the best center during his time in the AFL. And then you look at a guy like Jack Rudney. Now, both those guys are on the Ring of Honor. And then down through the years, Mitch Morse, Tim Grunhard, and others have been really good centers. And you mentioned that's the nerve center. That's the air traffic control tower of the offensive line. It's very underrated in the game of football with the fact that the center not only has the snap count, he's got the play call from Patrick Mahomes, he's got to set line calls, and then he's doing all of that within a span of about 25 to 28 seconds. It is an acquired skill, and that's why if you can find a good center in this league, you hang on to him.
Casey Wigman, too.
Casey Wigman. Why did I leave Wiggs on? Sorry, Wiggs. I know you're watching.
Another great center. Kyle Trask to the Buccaneers. That's an interesting pick.
Yeah, he's way above where they thought he would be, and I guess they want to find heir apparent. So
yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I was going to say, though, Casey Wigman epitomizes being a center because he was that air traffic control guy, but he never really got the credit along that offensive line. Those offensive lines for the Chiefs in the early 2000s, I mean, there's Hall of Famers on that offensive line, all pros, guys like Will Shields, Willie Roaf, Brian Waters. Casey Wigman, I don't think he ever went to a Pro Bowl. but he was just as important to that offensive line as everyone else along it. And now, hopefully, Reid Humphrey is that guy for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and think about Patrick Mahomes, because you know this, my thesis for Patrick Mahomes now is his second lap. We're starting the second lap of Patrick Mahomes' career. Think about a 4-year, and then the next 4 years starting right now. He now has a center, potentially, that he can grow with throughout those next 4 years and maybe beyond. And that is so key for Patrick Mahomes to have that, a guy that he trusts, and a guy that could be a potential Pro Bowl player in Reid Humphrey. Just to remind you what's coming up, the Chiefs do not have a third-round pick. People are loving the name Creed, too, right?
It's great.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's generational. You can go back on Rocky movies.
The Office?
The Office. Wasn't going there, but, hey, good enough. But if we can get Anna to put up the slide, and we're going to have Coach Reid in his news conference before we do that. But keep in mind, the Chiefs do have 4th and 5th round picks tomorrow if they stay put and do not move. And so there's some more picks coming for this Kansas City Chiefs 2021 draft class to join Nick Bolton, inside linebacker of the University of Missouri, and also Reid Humphrey, the center from the University of Oklahoma. There we go. Thank you. There are picks coming up. Look, round 4, pick 144. And then 2 picks in round 5 and a pick in round 6. That's all going to happen tomorrow. And let's just, round 4, L'Jarius Sneed. I think you like that 4th round pick. You probably like Tyreek Hill in the 5th round, just guessing.
It's pretty good.
And in the 6th round, you can take your pick of guys. But on this current team, Rashad Fenton comes to mind, taken in the 6th round. So, again, at least 4 more picks for the Chiefs remaining in the 2021 NFL Draft. And again, we're waiting for Coach Reid and his press conference to talk about these 2 picks.
I liked your thought about having a center growing with Patrick Mahomes. And I think in a lot of mock drafts, people talked about Landon Dickerson because he could do that. Now, Landon Dickerson goes much earlier in the draft, but Reid Humphrey now can be that guy for Patrick Mahomes. He can be the center that grows with Patrick Mahomes, and he can have that center for as long as Reid Humphrey's career lasts. And think about Jeff Saturday and Peyton Manning. That's kind of what I was thinking about. Don't want to set expectations too high for Reid Humphrey. That's unfair to him. But that's your hope, is that you can have a guy like Jeff Saturday who's your quarterback for the next however many years, and you trust him, you know him, you're on the same wavelength. That's imperative. How often do you see situations where the center and the quarterback aren't on the same page? If those guys are an extension of one another, it makes your team all the more better.
The other thing about Reid Humphrey is his size, because, and Austin Ryder did a great job for this team when you look at it, and a Super Bowl champion center. But he was undersized when you compare him to Reid Humphrey. This is you saw him on the video. I mean, this is a solid 302, and he's got broad shoulders. If you look at him, now one of the knocks on him is his reach. He doesn't have this huge reach. But a center, if you're looking at a center, I'm not going to be concerned about reach. It's not tackle, okay? But the fact that he is broad and wide and a bigger, thicker center, I think, really helps in protecting the A-gap.
And he's tall. 6'4". It's unbelievable. Yeah. So seeing what he can do in the A-gap there, you're right. And just how solid the middle of this offensive line is right now. So we've talked a lot about the tackles, and for a good reason. The left and right tackle are imperative. But when Coach Reid's joining us soon, let's hear from Coach Reid.
Yep.
Player from University of Missouri, and what you're going to get with him is just a all-out, aggressive, smart football player. Not the biggest guy, but very, very tough, great tackler, great ball skills, and in the pass game part of it, and tremendous leadership. So we look forward to bringing him on board. And then Reid Humphrey from Oklahoma, big kid that, again, is extremely smart. The thing you'll notice with him is he can snap with either hand, natural left-handed snapper, but he could do either one. It doesn't really matter. I mean, he's best probably with his left hand. That's his natural hand. But he's taught himself how to do it also right-handed. Great feet and work ethic, and then a big man. And so Reid will be a nice addition to that offensive line. My hat goes off to Brett Veach and his crew of scouts and really the whole personnel department there, of just batting down and taking the best players at the spot once we got to this position. taking the best players that were there. It takes discipline to do that. And Brett did that. And I think we came out with 2 good football players. Obviously, time tells, but they sure were good college football players. And we think they'll transfer right into here in Kansas City. Both good citizens, too, good kids. And they'll be great in the locker room for us. Anyways, with that, time's yours.
Let's go first to Herbie Tiopi. Go ahead, Herbie.
Hey, Coach, good evening. Always a pleasure to see you, as always.
Thanks, sir.
Hey, reference Nick Bolton, and I know you still have to go through OTAs and training camp, but based on what you've seen in his production at Mizzou, is he a kind of guy that you could probably project to immediately contribute, kind of like what you had in mind with Willie Gay last year?
Yeah, so he can play the Mike linebacker position, but he can also play the other positions there. So, yes, he can. We had a bit of an advantage that we have Andy Hill on staff, and Andy coached him, so and knows him personally, which helps. But we felt that he could help us in any of the 3 positions, and you can't have enough of those guys. We're a little bit short just on bodies, and at that spot, at our linebacker spot. So this helps us there.
Go next to Dave Scretta. Go ahead, Dave.
Hey, good evening, Andy. You mentioned that, you took the best players on your board, and that's always the case, I know, but these 2 guys also seem to fit 2 of your biggest needs. Would you say that's pretty accurate, and how delighted were you that the board actually fell that way?
Yeah, well, we knew there was a good group of offensive linemen, and so you figured there would be an offensive lineman there potentially. You're hoping it was one that you liked. And then the linebacker spot was a bit thin, but again, the way it fell, this kid, I thought it was a no-brainer when we got to that spot. I mean, you put on the film and you watch him play, and which I'm sure most of you guys have, that you just see he jumps out at you. So that wasn't too tough of a choice there, but. And listen, there's some other good players. I'm not saying that, but these were 2 of the guys that Brett had targeted before we even got into the day here. So he was hoping that they would be there.
Let's go next to Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Andy. Humphrey is now the 5th offensive lineman you guys have added, and counting the 2 guys who are opting back in. You're basically at a total makeover here at your offensive line. And it was obvious you guys were going to make some changes there, but was this maybe more than you anticipated when the offseason began? And Brad, I'll have one quick follow-up also.
Well, no, listen, we hadn't done a whole lot to that area for a bit. And we've got good players coming back too. So we've got this great competition that'll take place. And Adam, that brings out the best in all of us. So, as a player, you sit there, and I've talked to the guys about this. I mean, Brett's going to go do his job, and he's going to try to keep the competition high, and let's not run from that. Let's attack it. And what it'll do is, if you handle it right, it brings out the best in you down the road. So embrace the competition and keep on working to make yourself even better, and thus the team better. And that's what Brett's done with the offensive line. He's just added some great competition in there.
Yeah. Okay. And hey, we heard from Brett last night about Orlando Brown, but this is our first chance to talk to you since the trade. I'd like to hear in your words what you liked about him, how you think he fits.
Yeah. So Orlando, I mean, we know he's a big man. The part that you don't know is how much he loves football. And so he comes in and with a reputation here the last 4 years and during college of a kid that will be a leader in the locker room, leader amongst the offensive line, and also somebody that loves the game. And those are all important things to us. So does he have to get in here and work his tail off, and he'll have to learn a few new techniques and that, again, all to make him better. And does he have room to continue to grow? Absolutely. Even though he's been a 2-time Pro Bowler here the last couple of years, he's one of the great things about football. It's like being a farmer. There's always work to be done. So, he'll do that. He'll get in here and work his tail off and get better. But some of those intangible things I sure like. And then again, we've had a chance to play against him here a couple different times, and he's a physical, physical guy. So we like that too.
Let's go next to Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Andy. Thanks for doing this. Just wanted to ask you what you learned about Nick and Creed in the pre-draft evaluations. Did you get a chance to talk with them on Zoom, and just what did you maybe learn about them that the tape doesn't show?
Yeah, so I sat in on the Zooms. I kind of kept back off on it so we could get accomplished what we wanted to get accomplished with it. And so the coaches, the position coaches, did most of the talking. The coordinators and the head coach, we kind of sat back and chimed in only when needed there. But it was great to let these guys talk about football, talk about their life, where they're at, how they perceive going forward here as a professional. And so I did listen to these two, and impressive. I've got a special place in my heart for Missouri, so I've had to kind of sneak in on that one and listen. And then Orlando told us to go get Creed, when he was here. He goes, there's a good one in Oklahoma you need to take a peek at. So we'd already had our eye on him, but it was neat for Orlando to, put it out there to us that way.
We'll go a few more, and we'll start with Sam. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Andy. How quickly do you feel like Creed can translate to the next level? And do you view him strictly as a center, or is he a guy that could maybe play some guard?
Yeah, he could do either. He's a good athlete, so he could, probably could play all three if we had to go that route. But so we'll just see. We'll see how he does. I mean, it's a competition part of it. You know how Andy does it with playing the five best. And so he's going to give everybody an opportunity to show what they've got, and we'll figure it out. But that competition, I mean, I can't say that enough. You bring that competition in the picture, and it just makes everybody better. And thus, in this case, the offensive line better.
Let's go next to Pete Sweeney. Go, Pete.
Brad, I'll just have one quick thing after this, but Coach, we won't get Steve Spagnuolo for a while. I know if you're taking Nick with your top pick, he had to sign off on this. What was his take, and what makes him a Steve Spagnuolo type of linebacker?
Yeah, well, he makes plays, and he's smart. He makes all the calls, or made all the calls at Missouri, and we felt like he could do that here. Steve did, and you love his attitude. You love the whole story. I mean, you guys are going to get a great story with this, and just with the kid and how he, came up through the ranks here. So, it's a good, solid person and a heck of a football player.
And then just, I know you're not into comparing to previous seasons, but it seems like there'll be competition for at least 3 or 4 offensive line spots. How excited do you get about this in-house tape that you're going to get to watch, this training camp battle? It's going to be for really a lot of the offensive line positions.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know how I feel about it. I mean, you're as good as your offensive line and defensive line are. So, it's obviously important spots. So I love the competition that we've created. Like I said, we've had good players here. So, but this even adds to the competition level, and it should just make us better.
We'll go last to Matt Derrick. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Coach. Thanks for the time as always.
You bet, Matt.
You mentioned that Nick is a little bit undersized. Is that just an evolution of that position, with the linebackers role having to do more and more, especially with multiple receiver sets? And I mean, is that something that when you're going up against a team that's got a linebacker who can move around like he does and has that ability, that you got to scheme around a little bit differently?
Well, you guys know I'm familiar with small linebackers. I had a great one from Kansas State play for me, so at Philadelphia, and so this is no different. He moves around well. He can cover in the pass game, the RPO game. He's got a good feel for that, and he still can shed and get off of the big guys, and that becomes important. So it's. I'm expecting him to play as sweet as your shirt looks here.
Coach, we appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Be safe. Thank you.
All right, guys, hang tight. We're going to get Nick on.
Okay, you can tell Coach Reid's fired up. You know, we had him on earlier tonight, and I'm thinking, all right, he's fired up and ready to go, right? Yeah. Keep firing. But two things here with these guys. One, he coached at Mizzou, so he's familiar with it. So here comes a Missouri linebacker. He knows what that program's about. And with Andy Hill on staff, we didn't mention that. But then, two, he loves these linemen. He talked about the trenches. You ask him the question. But he's got a center now that is in a guy in a movement category, an athletic category, that can put him into the discussion with a Rodney Hudson or a Mitch Morse.
Definitely.
And that now, people have to realize what that does to the playbook for Andy Reid.
Absolutely. And you look at just the additions along the offensive line. I'm trying to scribble them all down here that the Chiefs have made over the last couple of months. So Joe Tooney, Orlando Brown Jr., Austin Blythe, Creed Humphrey, Kyle Long. Then also consider Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, didn't play last year for the Chiefs. He's adding to this offensive line. And Lucas Niang, a third-round pick from a year ago. He didn't play last year. He's being added to this offensive line. You bring back Mike Rimmers. Andrew Wiley's in the fold. Also Nick Allegretti. I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple guys.
Don't forget Darrell Williams. I'm just telling you, he was good at Mississippi State as a center. So, I mean, he's going to be out there, too, competing.
Yeah, and once again, to get back to our point before the pressers, think about training camp. I mean, you can't say too often it's fun watching the offensive line drills. I know you're into that kind of thing. I'm going to be watching it all of camp because who are the starting five going to be? This is going to be so much fun to watch because there's so much depth and competition, versatility, and durability along the offensive line. Those are all the buzzwords you want. And, I mean, is it football season yet?
It is now. It started tonight. The Chiefs are not done. They're done tonight unless there's a trade. And we're going to come back. We're going to come back with a wrap-up because we're going to glance at the third round. We'll recap the first 2 days. But tomorrow, the Chiefs will be busy if everything stays the same. Here's what the Chiefs have left to pick because they've got the round 4 pick at 144, 2 round 5 picks, and a round 6. I mentioned it earlier. They have nailed it in every one of these rounds. These 4 guys, if they stay here, Matt, we have seen Brett Veach do it before. We've seen it throughout the franchise's history. These guys that are left can help you win in week 1 and form the next lap for Patrick Mahomes' career.
L'Jarius Sneed is a great example of all of this, finding him in the 4th round. And then CBS Sports, they did a redraft of the 2020 draft. He was the 8th overall pick in the redraft, getting him in the 4th round. Of course, that doesn't always happen, but finding guys in the later rounds on day 3. Don't tune out day 3 because there's going to be guys that are going to help the Chiefs win in 2021 and beyond in day 3. Mike Dana, another example.
Round 5.
A pass rusher that did some really nice things last year for the Chiefs. I'm excited to see what his future holds. You can find players on day 3 just like you find players today and in the first round.
What about the 2016 redraft where 5th round pick Tyreek Hill? Where would he have gone?
Top 5?
I think so. All right. You're in the top 5 because you're with us. We hope you come back with us. We're going to be back on here at the end of the 3rd round. Right now they're in pick 70. We'll be quick. We'll just recap everything yesterday and today and then try to get you ready for tomorrow. But thanks for joining us on our Draft Watch Party brought to you by GEHA here from the Chiefs practice facility at 1 Arrowhead Drive. He's Matt McMullen, the happiest guy in the world right now, and Chiefs reporter, Missouri alum. And I'm Mitch Holtis, voice of the Chiefs. We'll see you in a couple minutes.